All right, so today it looks like there was a bit of a volcanic eruption in Italy today, and I saw that and I was like, "Whoa!" It's kind of random because when I think about it, it's just a bit weird that like volcanoes erupt like all the time, sometimes like very minorly, but this one is actually pretty massive. And when did my bit of research, I actually found that this volcano it's relatively active actually, but let's just do a little bit of reading to get into our topic, just because, let's get some background on what happened. So, it says here from The Guardian, Italy's Mount Etna, Europe's largest active volcano, spews plumes of ash. Officials say there's no immediate danger after the volcano generates eruptive cloud and pyroclastic flow. So, a huge plume of ash, gas, and rock has spewed forth from Italy's Mount Etna, Europe's largest active volcano, but authorities said there was no current danger to the population. Images showed a massive gray cloud billowing from the volcano on the island of Sicily. Beginning about 11:24 a.m. local time on Monday, according to the National Institute of Geophysics and Volcanology. Surveillance cameras showed a pyroclastic flow probably produced by a collapse of material from the northern flank of the southeast crater. The agency said a pyroclastic flow occurs when volcanic rock, ash, and hot gases surge from volcanoes. They are extremely dangerous. The explosive activity had transitioned to a lava fountain, INGV said, with the plume of ash expected to dissipate toward the southwest. That the president of the region of Sicily, Renato Scifiani, said experts had assured him there was no danger for the population, with the flow not having passed the Valley of the Lions, an area frequented by tourists. Videos posted on social media appeared to show tourists hurrying down the side of the volcano, some taking photos, but AFP could not determine their authenticity. The partial collapse of the southeast crater, which generated an impressive eruptive cloud several kilometers high and a pyroclastic flow, is a phenomenon that we follow with extreme caution, Schiaffani said. The head of the Regional Civil Protection Unit, Salvo Cocina, recommended that tourists avoid the area in consideration of the potential evolution of the phenomenon. A red alert issued for aviation authorities said that the height of the volcanic cloud was estimated at 6.5 kilometers, more than 4 miles, and the nearby Catania airport was still in operation. So, looking into this, you can actually see how kind of crazy it gets when it comes down to, volcanic eruptions. And something that you should take note of whenever you hear about this, that you should never, I know people associate volcanoes and lava and stuff, but the biggest hazard by far when it comes down to volcano eruptions is actually volcanic ash. And the reason why it's so deadly is because, first of all, there's a lot of stuff in volcanic ash, and it's so thick to the point where it can actually clog airplane engines and stuff, and you can't breathe in it. So that's why you have to get out as soon as ash comes. And because it gets so crazy, aviation might have to be on pause for that. We'll get into that later, but that's generally the gist of it. However, I do want to show you guys two videos. So one is allegedly from the volcano itself, and the second one is actually from a different volcano in Guatemala, just to show you how kind of insane or intense it gets. So one will be really up close. The first one will be kind of close, but the second will be really close to a volcano. So let's take a look at both of those.
Incroyable. Tout le monde est en panique, tout le monde descend. Ouais, truc de ouf là. Incroyable. Tout le monde est en panique, tout le monde descend. Ouais, truc de ouf là.
Yeah, so as you can see there in both cases, like it's pretty, the volcanic ash comes up pretty fast, and it's something that you really want to get away from because that is what travels like the furthest and what will get you. And so, interesting enough, if you paid attention to the first line of the article, you'll notice that it said it's one of Europe's most active volcanoes. And so, eventually, there's three types of volcanoes you should know about. First one is active, which is means it erupts fairly often, and fairly often can kind of shift between. Sometimes fairly often can be like every maybe 10 years or every year, but basically it erupts often enough. The second type is a dormant volcano. Dormant just means that it hasn't erupted for, I believe the bar is at least 1,000 years. It might be more than that, but that's what dormant basically means. So it can still erupt, but it just doesn't do that. At least it doesn't do it. And the third type is an extinct volcano, which means there's no eruption at all. There was activity once, but there's just none whatsoever. And that's types that you got to know about. And so, interestingly enough, when you look at this particular one, Mount Etna, you can see that actually back in 2018, it also had an eruption. And even another one of note was one in 2011, where it also had another eruption. So if you look at both these pictures I have up on screen right here, you see like one is really lighting up the night sky, and the second one was during the day, so you can literally see it. And whenever a volcano erupts, you can see how far ash cloud really travels, which is really, it really tells you just to like the magnitude of how like insane it is. Now, I've never seen a volcanic eruption, so I can't tell you what it's like, but I've seen a dormant volcano, so it's pretty cool. Now, of course, let's go into little facts about Mount Etna, and you can actually look at how it was formed. And it says here that Etna's formation is tied to the complex geological processes associated with the convergence of tectonic plates in the Mediterranean region. Located on Sicily's east coast, Mount Etna is one of the most active volcanoes in the world. So, in layman's terms, essentially, you have two pieces of land that hit each other. And so, naturally, depending on the density, if two continental crusts are roughly the same density, you'll see that they'll go upwards because they don't, they just clash. And so that's essentially what happens. And of course, eventually, with that clashing, sometimes what will happen is that you'll just get a regular mountain, but sometimes you also get lava that'll shoot right up, which is roughly what happens, give or take, when it comes down to that. And that's basically it. Like, that's how it's done. And you can even see here, like, this website I have here, it doesn't have the 2011 and 2018, but you can see that in like 2001. You can see that one from like 2002 to 2003. You have 1991 to 1993. You have 1983. You have 1981, 1971. Then you go back to 1928. You have 1852, 1853. You have 1669, 1381, and 376 BCE. So you can see that naturally this is a very, very, very active volcano. It's always going up about. So naturally, of course, if you live near the area, you can also, you'll know roughly if it's dangerous or not. But a cool thing about volcanic ash they don't tell you is that it can actually make very fertile land. Like a volcanic eruption can make a very very, very fertile because there's lots of minerals inside of like lava and stuff and ash. So just something to take note of. Now, let's go on to like some dangers, because while it is cool to like see volcanic eruptions from a distance, admire from a distance, there are some genuine dangers that we should take a note of when it comes down to it. Now, if on the screen you're gonna have up here like some dangers that I found, some really, really quick ones, and so I'm gonna go through them very, very quickly. And so the first one I have here is major threat to aviation. So airborne volcanic ash is a major hazard of all explosive eruptions. Aircraft encounters with ash clouds can diminish visibility, damage flight controls, and cause jet engines to fail. Or fall. You know how I said earlier that, ash is very thick? That's what I was talking about. And so impacts of ash fall on health, business, and infrastructure. So in the highlighted section, you can take a look here that ash fall can cause minor to major damage to vehicles and buildings, contaminate water supplies, disrupt sewage and electrical systems, and damage or kill vegetation. After ashfall, affected airports must be closed until ash is removed because of its hazard to jet engines. And of course, if you actually keep looking around, though, there's other stuff that's like there. For example, you have actions to take before, during, and after an event. You have during an eruption, so stay calm, wear safety glasses and dust masks. Inhaling ash can be very harmful to your health. Stay indoors. If outside, seek shelter as quickly as possible. If you must drive, use low speeds and ensure you have plenty of windshield washer fluid. Place damp towels at door thresholds and other draft sources. And that is just because whenever you put water and stuff, it actually stops particles from getting in. Compared to just regular cloth, it's not going to block out everything. something to note. And after an eruption, stay tuned to your trusted local news source for the latest updates, follow instructions from local officials, and continue to protect your eyes, mouth, and nose until ash has settled and been cleaned up. So that's basically what it is, what happens here. Now, as noted, we just took a note that for this particular instance, we saw for here that there's not really a big issue that's happened, so we don't have to worry about that. So far, at least so far, as of today's reporting. I can't tell you what happens tomorrow or the next week, maybe something new would happen. But I want to point you to an example where volcanic ash actually halted a lot of different stuff, like for at least, I believe, like a few days. And so let me point your attention to the Grimsvatn eruption in Iceland back in 2011. And that's one is a really crazy one because I actually vaguely remember the story, but I had to look it up just to make sure that it was real. And it actually was. So let's take a very, very, very quick look at it and go from there. So here we're going to direct our attention to this, where it says here, Grimsvatn, a subglacial volcano, is located 140 kilometers northeast of, I'm not going to pronounce that, volcano within the western region of Vatnajökull Glacier, Europe's largest glacier. On 21st of May 2011, Grimsvatn erupted and produced ash plumes and that drifted toward Norway, Denmark, and other parts of northern Europe and disrupted flights. This was Grimsvatn's first eruption since 2004, when it sent ash as far as Finland. The eruption continued during 21st of May to the 28th in 2011. So that is actually how insane it gets to the point where it gets to the north, like it gets all the way to Denmark and northern parts of Europe. And so that's how far it can travel, especially once you have really, really, really good winds. Ash can travel very, very far, which is why, like I said earlier, that is the most dangerous part of a volcano, hands down. Like, lava is, of course, deadly, but the ash is really what affects most people, not so much the lava flow. And so we're going to look at a couple of pictures here. Like, for example, here, this man has to actually put his livestock into shelter because, well, naturally, animals can't breathe in this stuff either. Same with humans, so they're gonna get affected, and that could also halt his, his yield at the time. So you have to make sure your animals are safe, of course. Here's another one, which is actually, I mean, if it wasn't for volcanic ash, it would be a little more cooler. But you can see how it affects lightning, and so naturally, a little fact here is that lightning travels like to the shortest route to get to where it needs to, but because volcanic ash has so much stuff in it, it's gonna be distorted, and it's gonna be distorted getting to its destination. Just something to note of. And as earlier we talked about how thick it gets, and we can see that in this car here that volcanic ash literally took out certain parts of his car, which is pretty crazy. And so now I'm going to present to you a map where we have here where it shows you like the pathway, and you could actually see how far it got, which is how insane it is. So it says here on 24th of May 2011, the London Volcanic Ash Advisory Center released this map of modeled ash concentration of 6 o'clock in the morning of UCT time. Concentrations of reported from 200 to over 4,000 micrograms per cubic meter. So that's basically, every little, how much ash is in the particular area, like per cubic meter. So you can see how far it gets. Now, if it got any worse, that ash looks like it could have traveled even further than it already did. But as you heard already, it traveled really, really far. So it could have been much worse. But at least at the time that this happened, you didn't hear... trying to remember. If anyone remembers, do comment below. But I'm trying to remember this. But I don't believe there was any casualties from this one. Just a lot of halting and flights and stuff. So that's really what it was. But anyways... So yeah, that's essentially what I want to take a look at today, because I thought this was really... I haven't seen a volcanic eruption in a long time, and from what I've seen from volcanoes, it's just something that, most of the ones I've been to have always been dormant, so nothing too insane. And all the active ones I've only heard on the news, but even then, I'm looking at some of these other eruptions, like this one actually erupted also, the one in Sicily also erupted in 2011, but no one talked about it because this one was much bigger, and it also caused way more damage than beforehand. So, that is this is crazy stuff. But I also just wanted to go to this video to kind of review over, volcanic safety and stuff. Just because, it's a good reminder. And I also, I do know stuff about this. So that's why I like to share my knowledge on it. Of course, I'm no volcanic expert, but I'm just a guy with some free time. But anyways, yeah, so that's what it really is. Hopefully you don't live near an active volcano. I hope not. But if not, then yeah, you have your safety precautions you should take. But yeah, so Etna, Italy. Well, good thing I'm not traveling to Sicily at this time during the year. But yeah, crazy vibes, guys. Crazy vibes. But anyways, that's about it for this video. If you enjoyed it and you like my little, detours is from the bigger stories or from bigger stuff, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow my social in the description below. And I'll see you in the next video. So, ciao.